So Marques Brownlee and some other influencers were recently invited to a secret lab in Apple to make some content that looks more like a PR move from Apple themselves. Let's hear from Marques Brownlee himself.
The more it feels like, Apple's just shown me a ton of durability labs, and durability feels like it's directly at odds with repairability.
Is it so? Is durability and repairability really two sides of the spectrum? Today I'm gonna debunk that. Apple products are not actually durable because they are not repairable. So let's get into it. I will start from the first generation of Apple products. This one is iPhone, I think it's the first generation of iPhone. And if you look at it, even in the first generations, you will notice a few things. First, there is no removable battery, right? The other things that you will notice is that it says 8 gigabytes, which means there is just 8 gigabytes of storage, which of course these days is not enough. I mean, even back then it was not that much storage. Let's compare it to another product that was released almost the same year, and that is this one. This is Google HTC Dream. A phone is the first Android phone with a keyboard and everything. So the first thing that you notice is that you can just remove the back, and there's a replaceable battery here that I can just remove and add another battery. This is something that I've done multiple times with this phone. The reason is that your battery every month loses between 1 to 2% capacity. So after 3 to 5 years, the battery should be replaced. Otherwise, your phone won't last the whole day. And that's why it is very important to be able to replace your battery as easily as possible. And that's why EU has this new law that you should be able to replace your batteries, right? This is the first thing that makes Apple products not durable. The battery inside every phone degrades. So if you make it hard for the customer to change the battery, and the trend started from the first iPhone, your product is not durable, period. Let me take a look at another example. So I think this is the first Xperia phone, or maybe this one. I don't remember, honestly. It's been a while. But also in this one, if I try to open the back, I can do it. And of course, there is a battery that I can replace if I want to. There is also a micro SD card here. So if I want to increase my storage, so I don't need to buy a new phone after a year or two, I can simply do that, right? I can just buy a new storage, put it there, and call it a day. So lack of removable batteries make it not durable. Lack of SD card expansion also make it not durable, right? Let's go to the third one. So the other point is not about durability or repairability, but it's about Apple greenwashing. They always put their phones on such a case, and that's what they popularized, because they are saying that the old cases are not green because there's a headphone jack and charger, and they want to be green, whatever. So this is the first iPhone, and this is iPhone 3G. And as you can see, they are using a very non-standard port to charge their phones, and it is this one. And this trend continues, so all the other iPhones that you see here have something called Lightning port. I mean, they could just use USB-C, right? But they didn't until they were forced by EU to add a USB-C port here in iPhone 15. But all the other Android phones that you see here, they are all having almost the same kind of charger. It is a standard, and it is compatible with your other devices at home. For example, if I buy this Samsung one, it has USB-C, and if I buy a Google phone, it has the same charger. But if I have an iPhone 14, I should buy two chargers, or two cables. One of them is Lightning port, and the other is USB-C. And of course, this is not green at all, right? Another thing that is also greenwashing is the fact that they just removed the headphone jack. I think this one is iPhone 4. I'm not so sure. They still have the headphone jack. Also, it's were coming in the box. And I think this one is iPhone 7. I'm not so sure. And if you can take a look, there is no headphone jack anymore. And they force everyone to buy AirPods. So this one is not AirPod. This one is from Samsung. But if you take a look at the box, you will notice that this is also not durable or repairable because you cannot change the battery. After just like 2 or 3 years, this is gonna just hold half of the battery that it used to. After 5 years, I should definitely just throw this out and buy a new one. This one is not gonna last more than 5 years. And not just the one from Samsung, but also Apple or any other company. They are not durable because the battery dies. The chemicals in the battery is just gonna degrade over time. And they forced everyone to buy it, so they made not just the phones, but also all the accessories for it not durable and not green. You cannot claim that your product is durable if you make it out of glass. I understand as an engineer that worked in factories in R&D, I do understand the properties of the glass. I do understand that it's better for transmission, but phones were alright before that, right? Like if you take a look at the phones before, like iPhone 5 or 6, I think that was the first generations that they started to use glass. They all have plastic back or aluminum back, and that's completely alright. I never had any problem with it. But what they've started is that they started to use this material of glass on the back. As you can see, it can shatter very easily, it can break very easily. I think all of you had a phone that had a broken glass, or like you have a friend that has a broken glass, and it's almost impossible to repair it. Like you have to spend like $500 to $600 to repair a small broken glass. And that's a trend that they popularized. They popularized having a glass back, which makes the phone much less durable. So how can you claim your product is durable when you are literally using glass on the front and on the back of your phone? So this one was about iPhones, but how about their laptops like MacBook, and how can we compare it to something like ThinkPad? Let's get into it. So this is a Lenovo ThinkPad laptop that I bought more than 10 years ago. It is T450. And the first thing that you will notice is that you can just change the battery. And I've done it multiple times. Every 3 to 4 years, the battery degrades, and super easily I can just remove the battery and then put a new one. And this makes it more durable. Why? Because, boom. Why it makes it more durable? Because the battery degrades. Like, battery is part of your product. You cannot claim that your product is durable when you cannot change the most integral part of it, which is the battery. That's one thing. The second thing, like I bought this laptop when I was doing my master's in Hong Kong. Then I moved to Singapore. I was doing my PhD. And then I was doing my PhD thesis. And I needed more RAM. So if I had a MacBook, I was out of luck. I couldn't do anything. But because it was a repairable and durable product, I just bought a new RAM. And actually, this is the old one. I just unscrewed it. And then I put the new RAM inside. And then instead of like 8 gigabytes, I had 16 gigabytes of RAM within the laptop, and it was done. I also changed the SSD a couple of times. On top of that, you see like there is a keyboard thingy here. And what happened is I spilled coffee inside the keyboard. And as you can see, the keyboard is not original anymore. I just very easily removed it. There were like a couple of screws and I changed it. So now let's talk about the MacBook. Everything is almost soldered together, including the motherboard, RAM, SSD, and even the USB port. I can tell you a story. This is the second Mac that I have. The first one that I had, which was the same model, just broke because there was a problem with the USB port. And the technician came, it was under warranty, and he was like, I can't do anything because it was soldered to the whole motherboard. So the whole laptop got trashed because the USB-C broke. As simple as that. Like, just because of a port, everything within just broke down. Like, how can you make a product and claim that it's durable when a USB-C port breaks and then the whole laptop is being bricked? Like that's just not a claim that I can get behind. So I've heard also this argument a lot that the reasons they make all of these batteries and everything integrated and they glue them together is because they want to make it waterproof. This is just nonsense. Like Galaxy S5 had waterproof IP67, I believe. And this is my Pentax. I also bought it in Singapore because Singapore is very humid and I wanted to have a product that doesn't break after like 6 months. And this also has a removable battery. I mean, a lot of professional equipment like cameras and stuff are weather sealed, and you still have your removable battery. And I can also tell you a personal story. It's not scientific because it is just one single story. So I was traveling with my Pentax, with my Xperia, and also back then I had another iPhone that you cannot see here because it got trashed. I will talk about it in a minute. There was an incident that I had to jump to the ocean with my backpack. So there were two islands, and I had to carry someone between these two islands because she couldn't swim, and then there was a tsunami and the waves were really dangerous and it was night. So I had to jump with my backpack within the ocean to just put her on my shoulder and then just travel the whole way to the other island. And those three devices that I talked about, my Pentax, my Xperia, and that iPhone, were all in the same backpack. What happened is that Pentax completely survived. Xperia, I had to just restart it once and that's it. And the iPhone just died. And the iPhone's supposed to be waterproof and sealed and glued together, but it didn't survive. What survived was my Xperia and my Pentax. So the reasons that companies make things not repairable and they glue everything together, from my personal perspective, is for one, they want to sell more accessories. They want to kind of force you to upgrade from time to time every few years. And the second reason, it is cheaper to do that. So it is way cheaper for a company to just glue everything together and ship it out rather than spending time on making something like this. There are so many moving parts, there are so many components. Also with the Lenovo, it's just more expensive. When you make things repairable, you have to use more parts, and those more parts make things more expensive for the manufacturer. And also it makes it heavier. I think the reasons that Apple kind of went to that route is, for one, they prioritize looks over function, and that's very apparent in all of their products. They want to make it as simple as possible. Then they want to decrease the cost of manufacturing. And I think they also know by doing it, you kind of have to upgrade your phone from time to time, whereas if it is super repairable, you don't need to. Also, I have no problem with influencers that went to the Apple event and went to the factory and reported on that. But I think doing YouTube sometimes is a business, right? You're running a company, really. I think there's a spectrum. Hear me out. So I think on one side of the spectrum, a video can be informative. And on the other side of the spectrum, a video can be purely sponsored and based on business, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that you got money out of it, but you are promoting a business. And for example, in case of Marques Brownlee, I think he made some videos like Rabbit, which is very informative. He makes some videos in between, especially with phone releases, because he gets the phones, and not just him, all the influencers get the phones 2 weeks before the launch. They sign an NDA and they have to say and not say certain stuff about the phone, and they cannot report on everything. So this is kind of informative, kind of like a business promoting a brand. And I feel like this video is more on the business side. So it was more about promoting a brand rather than giving actual information to people that they care about. I think there are also other influencers like Louis Grossman, I'm not sure that I'm pronouncing his name right, that are more on the informative side. And everybody is somewhere in the spectrum, right? And not every single video is on one side or another. You can also watch his video. I will put it in the description down below. He more talks about the internals of iPhones and how they are repairable and how they are not, and the major flaws that they had over different generations. Thanks for tuning into Tecmo, and like always, I hope that you learned something. Peace.